Right, these videos I'm going to do is to try and highlight how much control Hitler had over different aspects in people's lives, because the temptation is that Hitler had like total control. And what I would just remember people to, when I was starting off teaching and when I was a student teacher, I always remember a pupil approaching me at the end of my last ever lesson with a year 9 class, and he told me that his grandparents were German and they basically grew up and felt that in Nazi Germany there was 3 options to face, which were you were Nazi because you wanted to be, or you felt you were indoctrinated to be so, you were anti-Nazi and you protested, or out of fear you kept your head down and just looked out for yourselves. And then they were in the last category. So to think that the Nazis had like total control in every part of Germany would be wrong. Okay, so we're going to start off with, when we're looking at how far Hitler controlled life, we're going to look at the church to start with, and I'm going to show you how he controlled the church, but also be telling you about maybe some resistance in there as well. Basically what you've got then with the church is Germany was a mainly Christian country at this time, still is, and it's based around 2 religions, which are Protestant and Catholic. There was a lot of Catholics in the south of Germany, and there were a lot of Protestants as well spread around the country. Start with the Catholics. These could be a huge problem for Hitler, because the Catholic Church was headed up by the Pope, and what you would get is, because of the way that the Catholic Church runs, the Pope could be seen as a bigger influence on people's lives than Hitler was. People might listen to the Pope rather than Adolf Hitler, so he might not have total say on what happened with the Catholic people in Germany. So he had a huge problem, like potential problem here. And to sort of get around this, Hitler signed the Concordat with the Pope in the Catholic Church in 1933, and basically it was a deal, which was that the Catholic Church would be left alone by the Nazis if the Catholic Church stayed out of politics. So if they didn't get involved in Germany, there'd be no problem with the Catholic Church in Germany. So Hitler sort of got around that one in a very diplomatic way. There was no single head of the Protestant Church, so there wasn't the same issue here, but there was a lot of support for Hitler from within the Protestant Church. So the question would be, why would anyone support Hitler, but why would churches support Adolf Hitler? And the first one is that in the 1920s it was a period called the Weimar Republic, and this period in Germany after World War I was absolutely huge for the arts and freedom of expression. But with this arts, freedom of expression, lack of censorship, there was also like pornography. Berlin became almost like Amsterdam-esque for people to go and visit, and it was viewed as immoral. So people who were religious and people who had very strict morals might not have liked the Weimar Republic and would have viewed it as immoral. So the church would have quite liked the Nazi use of discipline at this time. It might have been seen by some people as favourable to the immoral, how can I put this, lack of censorship in terms of it, which could lead to pornography, which was around in the Weimar period. Hitler, great speaker, and he just appealed to the Christians in his speeches, so he won over the Christian vote this way. And perhaps most importantly was, communism was a very real threat, and communists were anti-Christian, and the church fear was that communism would destroy Christianity, so Hitler was seen as the only hope. And a lot of church leaders basically recommended that people support Hitler and the Nazis rather than communism, which was a big threat to them and their very existence. Where you would see opposition, because it wasn't that smooth for Hitler, was first of all the Hitler Youth was a big thing, where obviously Hitler was huge in terms of getting obedience from children and the youth of Germany. So he influenced schools, and he influenced via the Hitler Youth movements. Well, there was a Catholic youth, and basically that is running directly opposite to the Hitler Youth. And the Catholic Church was starting, as the 30s progressed, to not trust Hitler. And basically Hitler couldn't afford to lose his influence in the Hitler Youth to a lot of youths going in the Catholic Youth, so he outlawed it. He made it illegal in 1937. He banned the Catholic Youth. And you also had Catholic schools, as you do today. Now, as you hopefully are aware, there was a lot of the state schools were under Nazi control. The curriculum was under Nazi control. Teachers had to be Nazi. This wasn't the same in Catholic schools, where basically there was different levels of propaganda which basically didn't come into the Catholic school. So the idea was there was a fear of the Nazis that a lot of children, because of Catholic youth groups and Catholic education, might not grow up to become Nazis, which was a huge fear for Hitler and the Nazi Party, who were trying to get 1,000 years of Nazi rule, where like indoctrinate the young, they grow up to be Nazis, indoctrinate the young, it just keeps going. So basically, at first, Catholic schools were made remove things like crucifixes, religious symbols, from their classrooms, and then they were just taken out of the control of the church. So the church influence was removed from these. Parents protested, teachers protested, and even the Pope went to Hitler or spoke to Hitler about this. He wasn't happy about this, so he hasn't got total control when it comes to the Catholics, even though he is obviously seizing this. It's estimated that 1/3 of the Catholic priests were actually punished under the Nazis. So Dachau concentration camp actually had a special area set up where we think at least 400 Catholic priests were imprisoned. It was not uncommon for church leaders, when in public, to be applauded as an alternative almost to the Nazis as well by people. So there was people looking to the church at this time. But all in all, the church didn't really go totally against the Nazis. So moments when you would think there would be a statement from the church, so for example the Catholic Church, the Pope, there wasn't. So for example, Kristallnacht, even though it was obviously this was against the Jews, against Judaism, there was no statement from the Catholic Church. There was nothing said. The Protestant Church, on the other hand, was split, whereas some Protestants were very pro-Nazi, and then there were some Protestants who were very anti-Nazi. So you've got like Pastor Martin Niemöller of the Confessing Church, spent 7 years in a concentration camp, in concentration camps, sorry, and Dietrich Bonhoeffer went as far as contacting the Allies, trying to organise resistance in Germany towards the Nazis. So he's a member of the church, and he's organising people how to like fight back against them underground movements. He was imprisoned in camps in 1943 and killed by the Gestapo in 1945. So again, the whole Protestant church supporting the Nazis, pure myth. But it was very difficult for churches to speak out, because obviously it's public sermons, etc. So you're going to get the Gestapo and the like making notes, taking names, etc. So public attacks on the Nazis weren't really going to be that frequent. And when complaints were made, usually you found they were against other Nazis rather than Hitler. So Hitler did put Nazis in charge of the different states like Bavaria, etc. in Germany. The complaints would be levied against those, because the propaganda that was put out in Nazi Germany was so effective and so strong that even when the Nazi Party was seen as being unfair, acting poorly towards the church, etc., people would just blame local level Nazis, blame Nazi supporters, and Hitler would be absolved of the blame because it was Hitler, and he was seen as this great saviour of Germany. So he got off with it, even if people didn't agree. They wouldn't put the blame onto Hitler. Also, the Nazis did have a go at trying to create their own religion, and it was not successful, but it was actually at best some Protestants would have supported it, but it was a pagan religion. It was called the Faith Movement, and basically the idea of it was that it was not Christian. It was based on pagan beliefs which were to fit around Nazi views. So, for example, it was very much about the Aryan race and such, which obviously is one of the main Nazi ideologies, and it picked out Nordic mythology to back up this idea of the Aryan master race, this supreme race dominating. So that's about the church. You can see control Hitler had and what he did influence, but it wasn't total. So I hope that helps with the church. Thanks so much.